Today, we're deep diving into one of the emotionally loaded and often avoided aspects of leadership, which is those difficult conversations. And I couldn't think of anybody better to join us than Mark. Mark spent a lifetime in the trenches of communication. He was a teacher. If that's not hard enough, he actually lived it. And from his days as a school teacher, all the way through to guiding tourists through unfamiliar terrain and to developing professional development training for drug and alcohol intervention. And Mark's got some incredible stuff to tell us about that side of it. Mark has negotiated some of the most challenging human dynamics that you can imagine, whether it's talking to people in crisis, holding space for somebody struggling, just confronting conflict head on. Mark's got a rare ability to show empathy and clarity at the same time. He's also a proud uncle and helps people with their family dynamics. So today we're unpacking what makes tough conversations work, not just in theory, but in practice. Thank you very much, Mark. Really a privilege to have you here today.
Oh, you're very kind. Thank you. And I'm very happy to be here, and I'm happy to share my knowledge, my experience, because I tell you what, I've made plenty of mistakes in my life, and my job is to make sure that others don't make them and learn through my experience, good and bad. I've had some successes, that's for sure, but I'm happy to share the truth, which is, boy, oh boy, I've mishandled things perhaps a long time ago. I've got pretty good at them now.
So, what's one tough conversation that you had as a communicator that changed not only the other person, but you as well in your communication style, maybe?
Geez, that's a good question, because so many of these conversations have just run through my head. But I think one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, putting aside the conversations I had with my elderly parents, was looking straight in the face of someone who was a mate, someone who was a friend, someone I socialized with, and saying that their behavior to another member of staff was inappropriate, unacceptable, unsatisfactory, and if they continue that sort of behavior, I will treat it as a very serious matter. I didn't want to have that conversation. I would, like most people, just wouldn't it be good if it magically just the whole problem disappeared? And one thing I've found for sure is they don't. Sometimes they do, but on the whole they don't. And I put this conversation off longer than I should have. That's a big mistake. So there's one mistake that I can pass on right now. Don't do it. Yeah, that was really tough, because not just did I not want to say those things to anybody, let alone a friend, I also knew there's ramifications. And that's something we often overlook, that there will be ramifications. And people, because of that, don't want to have the conversation. They'll hold a grudge, or they'll do this, or they'll think I'm mean. My job is to help people have the ability to have these conversations so that they get the very best opportunity of success.
Awesome. So, what's one common myth? I think you brushed on one there, but what's one common myth that people have about handling difficult conversation that actually makes them worse?
Oh dear. I think the myth is we're not as good as we think we are. I deal with a lot of people. I can talk right now. It happens to be a woman. A woman came to see me recently who I could just tell by talking to her. She had the words, she spoke well, she was a clear thinker. What she didn't have was the confidence. And that's the myth, is that, oh, I won't be able to do it. I'll mess it up. You won't if you have the right words to say, you have the right look, you say it in the right way, and you know where to look and when not to look. So maybe that's the myth. That you put me on the spot there with that myth. But I think, that I can't do it. Let me just say, there's another myth around. I don't need any help. It'll be fine. I'll just say it. And then they don't realize.
It never
Well,
goes.
6 months later, they wonder why people leave and the team they're not really getting the respect that they think they should, because You just blurted stuff out without giving it the time. So it's both of those.
Yeah.
Don't be underconfident. Is this a word? Underconfident. Don't. On the other hand, don't think, oh, I'll just go and say it. It won't matter, because
Yeah.
it does
Yeah.
matter.
Absolutely. Look, I thought you were going to go for something like people just saying it'll fix itself,
Oh,
you
so
know,
that's, I should have gone with that. There's,
because that is, I think that is in communication. I
yeah,
know that the avoiding them is seems like the easiest thing in the short term, but in the long term, it's really going to burn you.
it's, look, sometimes a problem does go away with time. It is true. It seems less important as time goes on. But if
Yeah.
you're going to expect that a difficult person, a problem about someone's sexist language, just for example, is simply going to magically disappear, and the person who was offended is going to say, I don't care anymore. Who cares? You're wrong. It doesn't happen. People don't suddenly go, I'm an idiot. I've just been so rude and horrible to people. I'm going to be a better human being tomorrow. I've not experienced that. I don't
That
know
would
any.
be lovely.
I don't know anyone working on the front line of, say, a local council, local government, has ever had someone come back the next day and say, "Oh, I've been rude to you all year. I've seen the error of my ways." So
I love
that's
it.
my people most certainly do need help and
Yeah.
guidance, and there's a way through
Yeah.
these.
You've worked with people in schools, you've worked with people in different training components of companies, you've worked with people in crisis, so people that are really going through some very difficult times. Are there any patterns that you've seen where why people would avoid those hard conversations?
Look, I think there's lots of reasons why people avoid them, and they're called tough because that's what they are. They're tough to think about having, let alone actually have. We
Mm,
worry about them. How will we perform? What if we cry? What if we stumble? What if they get angry? What if they hate me? What if I'm not sure what to say? What if I have this tough conversation with someone at work about their performance and nothing changes?
yeah,
These are the things that hold us back all the time. And there's also just the simple reality is there are some topics we don't like talking about. Who wants to talk to somebody about the fact they no longer have a job? And you know that's going to create a burden on them financially as well as socially. It affects them mentally. No one wants to
yeah,
do that. So there's a lot of things which hold us back. People often think it's the case of, oh, the other person will get angry or start yelling at me. That is an issue. There's no doubt about it. But a lot of the time, these tough conversations is because we don't want to say these things to other people. We don't want to
yeah.
create this burden. But it's very often our job at work.
Mm,
It's our job as a parent. And it was my job. It was my job once as a son to say something to my elderly parents about how I thought they needed assistance in the house. And
okay, okay.
I can tell you, I put that conversation off for a long time. And something I do say a lot, Louis, is people have tough conversations all the time.
Mm,
You have them at work, you have them with the taxi driver, you have them with the neighbor, you have them with someone in your family. So it's not that we don't have them, it's that
yeah,
we don't always get them right. And you
okay.
sometimes only get one choice. That's one chance. You sometimes only
Mm,
get one chance at these things, and you better get it
yeah,
right because if not, your name is mud. You come on too soft, too hard, don't say the right things, and you look
yeah,
foolish. You feel bad.
okay, okay. So just on that topic, if someone's having that tough conversation and in the middle of the tough conversation, their throat goes dry or they just start to panic, or are there any things that they can physically do to regain control so that they can actually take control back of the conversation?
Look, that's a great question because it comes up quite often. And I'm going to say one thing right now. It's okay to stop. It's okay to leave. It's okay to say, I just need a minute. They know that you're upset. They can see it on your face. There's no sense pretending
Mm.
that you're not.
Yeah.
Or you can pretend. I don't think it's necessarily a good thing to do. It's okay to say, I just need 5 minutes, okay, or a few minutes. You walk out, you
Mm.
go to the bathroom, you look in the mirror. Why me? Wash your face, compose yourself. You come back.
Yeah.
I'm ready to start. Now, if you're dealing with a difficult person in this tough conversation, because they want to know stuff, oh, are you upset? And it's often that
Mm.
you get a tone in their voice. Oh, I hope I didn't upset you. You know, and your job is to not buy into that. I'm ready to
Yeah.
start. What I was saying to you, Louis, was boom, that's what I want to talk to you today about. So I think it's okay to leave. It's okay to say, I need a few minutes. I don't
Okay.
suggest lying. I did see in a book once where you can pretend you have to go and get a record or a document and then come back with it. And then what do you do? It's not, it's a fake document. So I don't think you need to lie. I think so. I just need a few minutes. Oh, have I upset you? Don't buy into that. I just need a few minutes.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's my advice. And I think it's fine. It's when you come back, though, to maintain that composure and say, I'm ready to continue. What we were talking about was,
Yeah. Get straight back into it. I love it. I love it. And so you've had to hold space, obviously, for some people with super emotional topics, addiction, grief, shame. How do you personally stay grounded when there's these kind of high stake conversations?
you do need to prepare yourself for these conversations sometimes. Now, if I should say, I worked in a crisis centre, and you don't know who's coming through the door, and you don't know who's going to be phoning. So you can't always
Yeah.
prepare yourself for everything. But for a lot of those in the workplace and in the home, you don't just walk into these things and go, okay, I'm ready. No, it's not the 5 second bit, it's the bit before. And one of the things I'm really into is helping people know what to say and in what order. And I call them personal conversation formulas, which then we work together to produce a personal conversation script, which is tailored and personalized to your particular needs. Because the way
Wow.
I say things isn't the way you say things.
Yeah.
So that's one of the ways I think people are well prepared is by knowing what to say and what to do with their hands and what to do with their voice at whatever particular times. I do notice that people sometimes know what to say, but they don't know what to do with their body, and that's when they fall down. But not just the words. When do you lean in and say, this is a very serious matter? And you don't say that by, this is a very serious matter. It's a very different look. So I found that when people know what to say, how to say it, and what to do and not do with their body and hands, I find the confidence just goes up here.
Wow. Okay.
I felt, yeah, they feel good. They feel, I know what to do. I know when to do this. I know when to get the document. It's such a great feeling. I'm actually getting excited and a bit emotional myself now because when you see somebody go from, I can't do this, I wish I never became a manager, to, I know how to have the conversation. I've got the words, the verbal code. I've got the sound, the vocal code, and I've got
Mm.
what to do, the visual code. Wow, you watch people and a new
Mm. Mm.
self-respect.
Wow. Okay. And as managers, if you're going to have that conversation about, let's say, somebody having sex as language in the workplace, you know that's not a one-off. In an ideal world, we'd like it to be a one-off, but we know that as a leader, that's going to come up multiple times in your life. And those personal conversation formulas designed specifically for the person sound, wow, they sound like an amazing resource for any leader to have. Oh,
Sorry, I just
okay.
interrupted you. But one of the things I've actually seen people's shoulders go down and relax when, no, I have a formula for you. I have
Mm.
the FEWER. I have the FEARED script. Yeah, that's a lot of letters.
Wow.
Not that
Okay.
hard. It's not a big word. And this is what they mean. To watch people go, ah, okay, now I know what to say. Not
Yes.
just, as I've read in some books, you need confidence. Sure. How do you
Mm.
get that? you need to know what you're going to say in advance. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you actually say? I give people, these are the words. You
Yeah.
change them to fit your style because my style isn't yours, but you
Yeah.
need to have these words come out your mouth. And here's a little add on for you. At the end, you need to know how to say nothing and zip it. Because one of the big mistakes I've seen too many times of managers is at the end of where they've said the behavior is not acceptable, etc., and this is what's going to happen. I'm so sorry it came to this because I thought better of you, or
Yeah.
something like that. So not just
Yeah.
these are the words, but knowing to say that's it, to stop.
Okay. Wow. And from a personal note, I've got a daughter and she's older now. So she's over that stage of going out drinking with her friends and the party stage. But you spoke a bit earlier about something that really fascinated me, and it was where you are we equipping our children? So if my daughter was 18, am I equipping her to be able to go to a nightclub and then get back to the car, and the designated driver obviously has had a couple of drinks, and now she has to have that difficult conversation. And I think that's something that we don't even think about. I didn't think about it as a parent. You think about it as a parent, but I didn't equip her. I didn't equip my daughter for those difficult conversations. We all say, oh, just say no and walk away. But it's much deeper than just saying, no, I'm not doing that.
I've got a great story for you. So when I was growing up, my father taught me how to ride a motorbike on a property, not out on the road. And there were all these rules about shoes and everyone, no one else had a helmet, but my father made me wear a helmet. And oh, the other kids haven't got one. Why have I got one? So we had all these safety rules. And all sorts of things about wearing shoes, not thongs, and all the sandals, all that sort of thing. Now, what's strange to me is that when I was 18 and I was old enough to enter a licensed premise, a hotel, a pub by myself, my father said, "I hope we brought you up. We hope we've brought you up well, and you'll be smart enough not to do anything stupid." This is the most dangerous place I could have gone to, and I was given no instruction whatsoever. However,
Yeah,
with riding a motorbike, etc., I was given lots and lots of rules and safety equipment. Going to pub,
yeah,
no. He just hoped that I'd have the ability. So one of the things that I think is the hardest thing, and I worked in this field for quite a long time, is particularly working with young women because they were
mm,
developing some of the dirty habits that blokes had for a long time of going to the pub and getting involved in shouts or rounds, as they're called in different countries. So,
mm,
how does a young woman or anyone turn around to their friends and say, "Oh, I've had enough now. I know it's Louis' birthday and we're all here for a party, but gee, I've got a game on tomorrow and I need to go home to bed."
yeah,
Boo. Or
yeah,
the one
yeah,
you mentioned, you have a non-drinking driver, maybe a new
mm,
boyfriend or girlfriend. You go out to the car. Oh, that was a great night. You hop in. Oh, I smell alcohol in their breath. Have you been drinking? Oh, I only had a few. And then you find
yeah,
yourself in trouble. What do you do now? So
yeah,
that's a big call for anybody to say to
mhm,
another person. And I'm going to make it harder. The girl goes out to the car. It's not her boyfriend, it's her boyfriend's father who is the driver, and he has clearly been drinking. Now, what do you do? You say, you
yeah,
say, "Oh, it's been a lovely evening, but I'm not getting in the car with you because your father has been drinking." How else do
yeah,
you get home? These are big issues. So I want to say it's bigger than the conversation. It's all about
yeah,
planning. It's all about what you do afterwards. How do you get home now if you don't offer that lift? These are big questions, but that
mm,
conversation itself, to have the integrity, to have the self confidence, the care about
yeah,
your own life, to be able to say,
yeah,
look, And we talked about assertiveness before, and I call something tactful assertiveness. Assertiveness is saying, your father's been drinking, I'm not getting in the car with you.
Yeah.
Tactful assertiveness is something slightly different where you whisper it or you say, you and I need to go back inside for a minute. So
Mm.
that's where you have the conversation out of the father's ear. There's all these little strategies and tricks you can use to keep yourself safe, because that's all it is. It's about keeping yourself safe.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I wish, fortunate, super fortunate, but my daughter was safe through the whole thing. But I wish I'd known that there was services like yours when my daughter was young, because as a parent, we want to protect them. And, like you say, we might look at riding a motorbike and think about all the dangers, but we're not thinking about how real the danger can be if we can't have a hard conversation. This could cause all
Oh,
sorts of really like unwanted pregnancies and
look, you've
mental health
raised a really
that
good
are
one there.
going. And these are all hard conversations. And if they can't have the hard conversation, then they have to live with the consequences for a very long time. But what's one phrase that we should never use in a difficult conversation? And
But I, there's so many phrases. One of the things I talk about a lot, which is stick to the facts. And the
mm,
facts are, at the staff meeting, Louis, you said A, B, and C, and that's against the rules and policies of this organisation. What I want to say is, Louis, your behaviour is just disgraceful, and you shock me sometimes. You're outrageous. You really are an idiot, and I find
yeah,
you belligerent. So maybe I've just exaggerated there for effect, but one of the things you shouldn't say is there's a lot of words which are true. You might be belligerent. They're not what I call facts. They are, that's my opinion or my interpretation of your behavior. It's what I think is going on in your head. Those sorts of things we need to be very careful of. Someone told me a while ago that, oh, Mark, the facts are so boring. They might be boring, but they'll keep you out of trouble. So the things you want to keep away from in conversations is anything that the other person can see as something to debate. So look, it's quite clear here you're not much of a team player. So I just have a particular hatred of that term. Because the obvious thing is from the other person, what do you mean by that? I'm not, I'm a great team player. What do you mean by that? I get on with everyone. I was helping Bill just the other day with his project. Yeah, no,
yeah,
what I mean is, then you have to say what I mean is. So you've
mm,
already gone down a rabbit hole. You've already gone down a sidetrack and a path you didn't want to go down. And you find yourself,
yeah.
as I call it, the backpedaling to get yourself back in the
Okay,
conversation. So stay away from anything that the other person can see as something to debate. And it goes well beyond
okay,
you're always late. We know we should get rid of words like always, but it's those extra things. You're not a team player. I can see that you're very slow with your work. No, that's a recipe for a debate. What do you mean by that?
yeah,
What you mean is your report was due at 10 a.m. on Monday morning. It's now 10 a.m. on Tuesday morning and it's not done.
yeah.
That's the fact. What I want to say to Louis, I don't know why I'm picking on you, Louis. What you want to say to Louis is, this is the fourth time in a row. Don't you listen to me? That's what you might
Mm,
want to say, but it will get you into trouble, tie you up in
okay,
debate and argument. So keep away from anything that is, our language is rich. There's
yes,
plenty of words we can use. Just stick with what was observed, what I call it, what the camera saw.
okay. So just stay with the
No
facts. Okay,
interpretation.
yeah.
Leave that for when you're talking to the windscreen on the way home, because I can assure you the windscreen of my car knows an awful lot of stuff. Keep it for them, but in those conversations, you be careful. Stick to
Okay.
the facts.
So I know that you do leaders and I know you do managers. What advice do you have for somebody's a co-worker, they're on the floor and they're all working and then they get promoted and now they're a manager? And now they have to have a difficult conversation with somebody that yesterday they were also complaining about the management too. They don't know anything about what we're doing. And now they're the boss, and now they've got to have this conversation. What advice do you have for those kind of people?
I deal with a lot of people who are new managers. I think the older manager, the older you become in a management position, you learn through trial and error. The problem with trial and error is a lot of errors are made along the way, and some of them are disastrous. So my job is to help young managers cut through that really quickly and learn from my mistakes and others so they get up here and they're as good as they can possibly be. My advice is really, my advice is for them to use the REAL method, which is
Okay.
something I created after years of having problems and going home, and my wife heard too much about this person and that person and whatever. You really need to start off with some sort of method. I know that you can just wing these things sometimes and it works out fine. Let's be honest, it does sometimes. Things
Yeah.
you go, wow, that seemed to be turn out okay. Or I've even had
Yeah.
someone say, you know what, I had to have this tough conversation, Mark, and then they left. How lucky is that? It doesn't always work out like that. So my advice is to start off with and I'm not going to go through the whole lot now, but there are some questions you really need to have answered before you have a tough conversation. And the first one really is, what are the facts about what's happened and what is the problem? Because people say to me, sometimes I have people say to me, oh, I've never thought about that. Why are you having the tough conversation? Something must have happened and there
Yeah.
must be a problem. No, I just want to get something off my chest. If that's what you want to do, fine, go for it. But believe me, they're not going to be happy about it, or they'll just walk away going, I don't know what
Yeah.
they're talking about. They'll just get something off their chest. But those facts
Mm.
is important because the facts are we start work at 9 a.m. every day, and you have come through
Mm.
the door the last few days at 10 past 9. And we have to have these phones operating, and
Yeah.
that's a fact. What's wrong with it? The problem here is you have a contract that says you're supposed to do certain things, and when you're late, another problem is your teammates have to do extra work. Oh, there's all sorts of things. But doing that is important. But I'm going to go the second thing that people struggle with that they really must get right is, what do you want the person to do? Because you do not have a tough conversation for the fun of it or just to get something off your chest. You do it because you want the person to do something. And then people say, oh, what do they want them to do? Now, sometimes it's obvious. If it's coming to work late, you want them to come on time. It's not hard. It's not that hard. But sometimes with people's performance, it is. What do you want them to do? I want them to lift their game. Yeah, fine. So what do you mean? They've got to go away with knowing what that actually is. So you've got to be very clear
Yeah.
about, I want the person to go away and do these three things: to rewrite their report and submit it by 5 p.m. Something really specific. That's the thing, that those are the two things that they must get right.
Wow.
Be clear about
Okay.
what's happened. I'm going to add something here, that I worked for a union. It's not on my CV. I worked for a union. I used to go to a lot of these meetings, and where they would come unstuck for the manager, who was a lovely person, was
Mm.
that they didn't have their facts, and that's where people like me get involved in saying, so what do you really mean by they're not a good worker?
Yeah.
And then you can tie the person up very easily in a whole pile of this stuff because they don't
Mm.
have their documents. And that's something
Yeah.
that you need. Have those documents. Now, I happen to have that right here. Yesterday, blah, blah, blah,
Mm.
whatever it happens to be. Get those facts right and know what you want the person to do. That's the start of it. It's not the finish of it.
Mm.
But that's,
Wow.
I see people fall down in the first 3 minutes of a tough conversation by not being
That's
clear.
that's such good advice, because something like you're not you're not a good worker opens up this whole other debate, which is not actually the difficult conversation that you want to have. So if you can just keep it to the facts, that's really cool.
I
So
had, I'll just say that I had a woman sometime a while ago in one of my programs say that she tried some of this material with her son as a teenager, who was a teenager being not being helpful around the house, shock and horror.
That's unusual.
And she said, I told him that he wasn't a decent son. And I said, oh no. I said, what part of facts was, what part of that conversation didn't you understand? So if you just want to bawl your teenager out, just go right ahead. That's not a problem. But see, once again, saying to this woman, what do you want? What do you want your son to do at the end of this? I want him from now on to set the table Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. That's his job. Fine.
Mm.
Now we have something clear to work on. Because if it's just general behavior, he's going to go away and say, yeah,
Yeah, excellent. So, what's the most surprising thing to you that people get wrong about being a good communicator? Because we all think we're great communicators.
I'm going to be bold here and say it's the visuals. It's what they do with their hands and body. And
Mm.
I'm not talking body language here. Body language is me looking at you and saying, oh, arms crossed, or very close to new ideas. Or if I'm doing that, then maybe you're a liar, or maybe you just got an itchy nose. I don't know. Or if I do that, if I talk like that, maybe I'm a liar. I don't know. These might be all true, but I'm interested in what you actually do with your body and hands to enhance
Mm.
the quality of your communication. And this is called the frozen hand because it can be very useful in a tough conversation. And that's what I think is the big myth, is that, okay, as long as you're not doing this, as long as you're not doing that, you're okay. As long as you're just talking about whatever you happen to be talking about, then that's all good. Someone said
Yeah,
to me, but some European people from some European countries use their hands all the time. True, but there's a myth for you. But they're not just doing this; they're actually doing. So I was thinking to myself, and I wanted some food. I was hungry, with all my heart, with all my heart. No, seriously. So I was just thinking, and my head was about to explode. So it's not just idle hand movement. Everything was
yeah,
congruent with what they were saying. Maybe it's too much
yes,
for some people. Maybe that's true. But knowing what to do with your body, at what time, and when to lean
mm,
in, and you'll notice that most people do all this stuff naturally,
yeah,
50% of the time. The
yeah,
parent leans into their son or daughter and says, look, this is a very serious matter. And you notice that their voice changes.
yeah,
I hope this is a funny example. When I hop onto a plane, there's a flight attendant who says something like this. Oh, welcome. I'll exaggerate. Welcome, Louis. You're on the plane. You're in seat 25A, up there on the right, whatever it happens to be. I'm exaggerating, right?
yeah, yeah,
So their voice goes up and down, their face moves, their head bobs, and they smile. When they
yeah,
give the safety demonstrations, which now, of course, is done by television or some other means, but you notice that they don't move their head, their voice doesn't
mm,
go up and down, and they're not bobbing and they're not smiling because it's a serious matter. Now, we do
yeah,
this naturally. What you can do in a tough conversation is use these to your advantage, not to hoodwink the other person, not to get on top of them and put them down, but to make your point.
mm,
Thank you for being on time. It's really appreciated. Then they sit down and then say, what I want to talk to you about today is, by changing your voice, by changing your demeanor, your character, things change. It's then what
yeah,
you do with your hands that are really important. And as there's a real difference between saying this and this, or
yeah,
that and this. So being able to use your body in a controlled and meaningful way to match what you're saying. So that to me is, wow, I've covered quite a few things there.
no, that's
But
excellent.
but this
That's
putting this
excellent.
all together really makes a difference because you can use it to your advantage. Look, you'll notice I've had most of my hands down here. I could have had a bigger screen where you could have seen my hands. But I deliberately did that because there are times when I want to say certain things
Yeah.
to you. When I want to talk about five of this or two of that, there's times to use it. So you can use it to your advantage. And may I
Good.
say, the advantage is to make sure that the conversation goes smoothly, the person understands what you're saying, and you get the result you're really after. That's success.
I love it. I love it. If you could only teach one thing to your nieces and nephews, future leaders, anybody about having these difficult conversations and mastering them, what would that one thing be?
Oh, dearie, dearie me. One thing, and I just wrote a list of guiding principles and I got up to number 50 and I thought I should stop. Don't be scared of having them. You have to have them. The world won't fall apart. You won't suddenly fall off the edge of the earth. Have them. There's a time to speak up. You will feel better. No one wants to have a tough conversation because, by definition, they're tough. They're tough to think about. They're tough to have. They're tough to deal with later. That's what they are. My one bit of advice is have it. Don't just rush in and have it willy nilly. Think about it and have it.
Very cool. Very cool. So thank you so much for today. It's been incredible. I've learned a whole lot of things.
We've covered a
I
lot of
think some of
territory.
the I think some of the main things that were really appealing to me was you dealing with people to help them equip their children for those difficult conversations. You having that framework that people can just come and get a whole personal conversation formula designed specifically for them for a specific problem that they're having, which I know being in a leadership role my whole life, I know that sometimes there's a problem at work and it's you've got to talk to this person and really you lose so much productivity because you're sitting at your desk and every time you see them you're thinking, oh, should I talk to them today, should I, and you actually wasting time from where you could be productive, and lots of times you're taking it home to your family, and this problem isn't just having that hard conversation, it's all the other stuff that's attached to having that hard conversation. So thank you very much for that. I think that people could reach out to you and find out what personal formulas they personally need. That would be a great thing to do. And then just the way that you look at it. So you're talking about, I know you called the workplace culture and performance architect, and I can see how you've put this all together and you've really looked at all the different components, which is phenomenal, which is really phenomenal. Because a lot of us just go into these conversations, we go, yeah, she'll be right, we'll wing it. But if we can approach somebody like yourself and really get an idea of how that works, and I think for companies, I personally think that this should really be trained at schools. I think every single school should be having this kind of training because this really sets people up for life. And companies should definitely be having this because the now with the HR things, you've only got to try and you've got to have a difficult conversation about somebody doing something, and then you have a difficult conversation, and now suddenly, because you've gone off the facts and you've called them, something whatever, you're now in you now got a HR problem on your hand, and you've got all these other issues. So really appreciate that. If people want to reach out to you, want to work with you, how would that work, Mark? What's the next step for most people?
Let's have a chat. You'll find me very easy to get on with. You'll find me very helpful. This is a silly thing to say. I was going to say I'll be very helpful. One of the best ways of getting in contact with me is through LinkedIn, just
Okay.
because it's a simple method. You just look at the person, send them a message, as opposed to going to a
Okay.
contact form. But I'm more than happy to answer people's questions. I enjoy it. I actually
Mhm.
really enjoy it when people say, I've got this issue, what do you think? And me being able to help them with whether is this about cooperation you're after, or is this about conduct? There's two
Yeah.
conversations there sometimes about performance that you really need to have some help with. So that's the easiest way. honestly, but there's also my website, but also my email address, which I'm happy to give people too. But I'm just going with LinkedIn because it's just so easy to
Yeah, yeah.
use. And I'm there, and my smiling face will be there under my
I love it. I love it.
name.
And look, we'll put the links in the comments. And Mark, thank you so much. It's been incredible. I interview people all the time, and you think, oh yeah, I actually trained communication for a while. And I had a lady came to me and she said, I'm a great communicator. I've told him 1,000 times and he's still doing it wrong.
Big
And then I had to,
communicator.
yeah, and then I had to, you've got to go. If you've told him 5 times and he's still done it wrong, that's generally a problem with your communication style. You may not be as great a communicator as what you think you are, but I really
Oh, thank
appreciate
you.
you.
Thank you. It's been fun. You made it very easy.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. Thank
Thank
you.
you.